I still remember the day I first walked into the stone house on Crescent Hill in Portland, Maine. The sky was pale blue, and the wind smelled like salt from the harbor. Michael held my hand as we climbed the old steps to his parents' home. The stone walls looked tired, and the iron gate screeched each time it moved. Even then, I tried to tell myself it was charming. I wanted to enter that house with hope in my heart, thinking I would find warmth, kindness, and the feeling of being part of something bigger. I wanted to believe I had married into a loving family. I wanted to think everything would be fine. The house belonged to my in-laws, Richard and Helen. They loved to call it their grand estate in front of neighbors, even though it was worth around $700,000 and had problems in almost every room. The roof leaked in winter. The wooden floors had cracks that no one bothered to fix. The kitchen lights flickered every night. But they still carried themselves like royalty, and they expected everyone else to see their home the same way. I learned quickly that the house was less of a home and more of a symbol for them. It was something they used to measure their worth. When Michael and I married, everyone believed I brought nothing but 2 suitcases and a soft smile. I never corrected them. I allowed them to keep that picture of me in their minds. I wore simple clothes around them. I never spoke about business. I never showed signs of my actual life. I did not arrive to impress. I arrived to be part of a family. Or, at least that was what I hoped for. The truth they never knew was that across town stood my own house, a modern white home with tall glass windows overlooking a calm river. It was worth close to $4 million and was fully paid. Inside it, in a room hidden behind a sliding wall, I kept files that totaled $310 million in assets. A chain of digital marketing companies across America and Europe. 3 condos in Chicago. 1 penthouse in Boston. A rental building in Denver. Shares in a renewable energy firm in London are worth £12 million. Bank accounts that had taken me years of hard work to build. Nothing had been given to me. Nothing had been handed down. Every dollar was born out of long nights, endless planning, and sacrifices no one ever saw. But I never spoke of it. Not even to Michael. I wanted love to feel simple. I wanted him to love me without knowing any numbers. I wanted a marriage that did not depend on money. His parents never gave me a chance. Helen watched me in silence, like someone waiting for another person to prove her suspicions. If I bought a new dress for $200, she said it was a waste. If I picked a restaurant for Michael's birthday, she said I was trying to impress the world. Richard was worse. He made it clear that he believed I was after their property. He said little things, small remarks that slipped out of his mouth like poison. He once looked at me and said, in front of guests, that a woman with my background should feel lucky to live in their house. I smiled that day, because I did not want drama. But inside, a small part of me broke. Still, I tried. I told myself that if I showed kindness, eventually kindness would return. I bought little gifts for the family. I paid for a weekend trip for Michael and me, spending $5,000 just to make him happy. His parents smirked the entire time, whispering that I must be trying to secure a place in their property one day. I kept quiet, even though I could have bought 10 of their house without blinking. Michael never defended me. Not once. He would sit there quietly whenever his parents made remarks to me. I told myself he was just uncomfortable and did not know how to speak up. I told myself time would change things. I held on to the hope that he would finally look at me and say enough. But hope can be a dangerous thing when you hold it for too long. The house on Crescent Hill began to feel heavy. Every time I entered the living room with the old fireplace that never worked, I felt their eyes on me. Every time I sat at the dining table with chairs that wobbled, I felt like a stranger. I washed their dishes. I helped with chores. I made meals. They said nothing. I spent my days walking on eggshells, careful not to upset anyone. At night, when everyone slept, I would sit by the small window in the guest bedroom and look at the moon. I would think about my office, my staff, my projects, my accounts, and the world I had built. A world they knew nothing about. A world that was mine. I always wondered if I should tell Michael, but I feared his reaction. I feared he would change. I feared he would see me differently. So I kept the truth hidden. As days turned into months, I began to feel like two different people. In their house, I was small, quiet, careful. In my own world, I was strong, capable, respected. But I tried to blend the two. I kept giving more chances because I believed marriage meant patience. I believed love could survive the noise around us. I was wrong. The day would come when all of them would learn the truth. Not from my mouth, but from the world outside. And everything they thought they knew about me would fall apart. But at this time, in this chapter of my life, I was still the quiet wife trying to please a family that never wanted to be pleased. I was still living in the house on Crescent Hill, and the storm had not arrived yet. The rain had started early that Sunday morning, soft at first, then heavier, until it washed over the windows like gray curtains. The entire house on Crescent Hill felt damp and quiet, except for the ticking of the old clock in the hallway. I had woken up hoping the day would pass peacefully, but something in the air felt strange from the moment I came downstairs. Helen and Richard sat in the living room with stiff shoulders, like they were waiting for a judge to enter a courtroom. Michael sat between them, his hands pressed together, his gaze fixed on the floor. No one smiled at me when I entered. I carried a tray of tea, because I always tried to keep the peace. I placed the cups on the table, hoping a small act of kindness might soften whatever was forming in that room. Helen looked at the tray as if I had placed something unpleasant in front of her. Then she folded her hands tightly, the way she always did when she wanted to give importance to her words. "We know why you married our son," she said. Her voice was calm, too calm, which made the words sharper. "You wanted our house and our land. You thought you could win us over by throwing money around. You have nothing of your own." Richard nodded, almost proudly. "A woman like you should be grateful for what she gets." Their words struck me with a force I did not expect. I stood still, holding the edge of the table for balance. For months, I had swallowed small insults, ignored unkind remarks, and tried to convince myself that Helen and Richard simply did not know me yet. But hearing them speak such heavy accusations out loud, with no hesitation, felt like a cut straight through my chest. I looked at Michael. He was my husband, the person who once held my hands and told me he would always be on my side. I waited for him to defend me. I waited for him to lift his head and say even one sentence in my support. He said nothing. After a long silence, I finally asked him, "Do you believe them?" Michael hesitated. His eyes moved from his parents to me and back again, as if he were weighing which side felt safer for him to stand on. Then he exhaled and said, "Well, I can understand why they think that." That sentence destroyed something inside me. It was not loud or dramatic. It was simple, small, and painfully clear. He believed their lies more than he believed my truth. For a moment, the room felt too small to breathe in. I walked out quietly, not wanting them to see me break. I climbed the stairs to the guest bedroom, closed the door, and locked it. The air inside felt stale, and the rain outside hit the window like a steady drum. I sat on the edge of the bed and let the tears fall, pressing my face into a pillow so no one would hear me. But I did not cry because of Helen or Richard. Their words hurt, but their opinions had never carried real weight for me. What broke me was Michael. The man I loved, the man I had trusted, had looked at me and chosen the comfort of his parents over the truth of who I was. He believed money was the reason I married him. He believed I needed something from them when, in reality, I could have bought 10 houses like theirs without touching even a fraction of my wealth. I thought about the nights I had stayed awake building my companies, the endless calls with clients in America and Europe, the constant work that had shaped my career long before I had ever met Michael. None of that mattered to them. They had judged me from the moment I entered their home. And now Michael had joined them. I cried until my eyes hurt. Then I sat up and stared at the wall for a long time. I thought about telling them everything. I thought about calling out their lies. I thought about listing every property I owned, every investment, every dollar. But I knew that if I did, it would not come out of pride. It would come out of pain. And I never wanted to prove my worth to people who never cared to see it. Later that day, when the rain slowed down, I walked back downstairs. Helen and Richard were in the kitchen discussing dinner plans as if nothing had happened. Michael was on the sofa scrolling through his phone. No one looked at me. No one apologized. It was like the conversation had already been decided and neatly tucked away in their minds. I stayed quiet. I cooked dinner. I washed dishes. I moved through the house like a shadow. But inside me, something had changed. I looked at Michael and did not see the man I married. I saw someone who wanted a wife to stand beside him, not a partner to stand with him. I saw someone who cared more about looking good in the eyes of his parents than caring for the woman he vowed to protect. Still, I stayed. Not because I believed things would improve, but because I wanted to give him one more chance. I loved him, even though I was starting to see that love was not enough. Over the next days, I tried even harder to make things calm. I bought thoughtful gifts. I booked a small vacation, hoping it would bring us closer. I covered bills, even ones that were not mine. But every effort felt wasted. The more I tried, the more they smirked, whispering that I was trying to secure my future in their property. Looking back, I know I should have walked away right then. But sometimes love makes you blind. Sometimes hope keeps you trapped in places where you no longer belong. I wanted to believe that he would see me for who I was. I did not know then that life was already preparing the truth for all of them. The truth would arrive at a time none of us expected. It would arrive in a way that would silence every doubt, every rumor, every unfair thought they had ever spoken about me. And when that moment came, everything would change forever. 3 days after that painful Sunday, I woke up to a sound that felt unusual. My phone kept buzzing again and again on the nightstand. At first, I ignored it, thinking it was just emails or notifications from work. But the buzzing did not stop. When I finally reached for it, the screen was filled with messages, missed calls, and flashing alerts. Friends from New York, employees from Chicago, contacts from London. Every message carried the same question. Is this you? You didn't tell us. Congratulations. I frowned, confused, and tapped the first link someone had sent me. My breath caught in my throat. There on the screen was my face on the cover of one of the top business magazines in America. The photo was from a corporate event in Boston months earlier, where I had spoken about women building independent wealth. The headline under the picture read in bold letters, "America's Quiet Powerhouse. The woman who built a $310 million empire." For a long moment, I just stared at it. The room felt strangely still. Sunlight slipped through the curtains and landed on the edges of my phone, as if even the morning light paused to look at what I was seeing. My story was out. The truth I had hidden for years, the identity I had kept private, was now printed in thousands of copies across America and Europe. People were reading about the woman I truly was. My heart raced, not from fear, but from a strange mix of pride and relief. I had spent so much time hiding my success from Michael's family that I had almost forgotten what it felt like to stand in my own power. Seeing my face on that cover reminded me of the woman I had always been, the one they never cared to know. Within hours, the impact of the article spread everywhere. My offices in New York and Chicago were flooded with calls. Investors wanted meetings. Journalists asked for interviews. A company in London emailed me offering a new partnership worth £8 million. My assistant sent me a photo of flowers that filled the entire lobby of my main building. Former colleagues wrote long messages filled with pride and memories from years of hard work. But there was one reaction I waited for, even though I pretended I didn't care. Michael's. It came in the late afternoon. I heard the front door open loudly, followed by quick, uneven footsteps. Michael rushed into the living room, holding the magazine. His face looked pale, almost frightened. Behind him, Helen and Richard came in slowly, dressed as if they had just come from church or a formal dinner. Their expressions were completely different from the cold looks they had given me before. Michael lifted the magazine with shaking hands. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. "All of this, the money, the companies, why did you hide it?" Before I could answer, Helen stepped forward. Her voice no longer carried sharpness. It sounded sweet and soft, almost unrecognizable. "We didn't know you were this successful. We always thought you needed us. You should have said something." Richard reached for my hand with a smile that felt painfully forced. We misjudged you. Truly. You must forgive us. Forgive them. The same people who called me a burden. The same people who accused me of marrying for property worth less than a fraction of what I earned. The same family that never tried to know me. All it took was one magazine cover to change their entire attitude. I looked at them closely, studying their faces. Not one of them showed real regret. Not one looked ashamed of their behavior. They looked excited, hungry, shocked by the size of my bank accounts, not by the size of their cruelty. Michael stepped closer. I am sorry, he said softly. I should have defended you. I should have trusted you. Please, let's start again. His voice shook as he spoke. You know I love you. I always have. I just didn't know all of this. His words hit me harder than his silence ever had. He did not say he was sorry for doubting my character. He did not say he regretted hurting me. He did not say he realized how unfair he had been. What he said was that he did not know about my money, and that was the reason he wanted a fresh start. That moment told me everything. He came forward now because the world praised me, because the article made me valuable in the eyes of society, because my empire suddenly made me worthy in his parents' eyes. Not because he understood the pain he caused. Not because he saw my worth as a woman, as a partner, as someone who stood beside him with love and loyalty. For years, I had loved this man. I had looked at him and believed we were building a life together. I had waited for his voice to rise for me. But now, standing in front of him, watching fear and guilt mix with excitement in his eyes, I understood something important. He never saw me until the world did. And I was done living that way. A calm I had never felt before settled over me. Not anger. Not revenge. Just clarity. Clear as clean glass. Clear as morning light on still water. I stepped back and looked at all three of them. After everything they had said. After everything they had made me feel. After all the humiliation I had swallowed. Suddenly, nothing about them had power over me. Not their house. Not their opinions. Not their false apology. For the first time since marrying into that family, I felt completely free inside my own mind.
The truth was out now.
But the story was far from over. The moment the magazine cover hit our town, everything changed. For days, I felt the energy in the house shift, heavy and strange, like whispers hiding in the walls. Every sound seemed louder. Every step felt watched. Helen tried to smile at me in the hallway. Richard tried to ask me about my company. Michael hovered near me as if he did not know whether to speak or stay silent. But nothing they did softened anything inside me. One evening, after dinner, I walked upstairs to our bedroom and closed the door quietly behind me. The room felt too familiar, too full of memories that no longer belonged to me. I looked around at the bed we shared, the dresser we bought together, the framed pictures from trips where I had smiled even when I did not feel seen. Something inside me felt calm and final. I took out a suitcase from the closet. Not the big ones I used for travel.
Just a small one.
I folded a few clothes neatly. A coat. A pair of shoes. My laptop. A clean notebook. Nothing more. I had no desire to take anything else from that house. Everything I needed had always been inside me, not around me. When I zipped the suitcase, the sound felt like a door shutting inside my heart. I walked downstairs slowly, not to hide, but to savor the last moments of silence before my life changed forever. When I stepped into the living room, all three of them looked up. Michael stood first. His face carried confusion, fear, and panic all at once. "You are packing?" he asked, his voice unsteady. "Yes," I said. My voice sounded calm, not cold, simply truthful. "I am leaving." He stepped closer, his hands shaking slightly. "Leaving where? For how long?" "For good," I said. "I want a divorce." Helen gasped loudly, covering her mouth. Richard stared at me with wide eyes, as if I had just spoken something impossible. But nothing I said felt impossible. Not to me. Not after everything. Michael reached out and grabbed my arm gently, almost desperately. "Please," he whispered, "don't do this. I know I made mistakes. I know I should have stood up for you. I know I failed you. But I can fix it. I swear I can fix it. I will defend you. I will tell them everything. I will change. But his words fell around me like soft ashes. They had weight once. Not anymore. I looked at him for a long moment. This was the man I had once trusted with my heart. The man I used to imagine a future with. The man I had tried to protect from my own success because I wanted him to love me for who I was, not what I had built. Michael, I said quietly, you did not fail me because you were weak. You failed me because you chose to stay silent when I needed you to speak. And now you are speaking only because the world finally sees me. His expression twisted with pain. That is not true, he said, shaking his head. I love you. I felt sadness rise in my chest, but even that sadness felt old, like a shadow that had already faded. Maybe you did, I said. But you loved me in a way that made me smaller. I cannot live that way anymore. Helen tried to step forward. You cannot just walk away from a marriage, she said. We can start over. We can all start over. I turned to her. You never wanted me here. You only want me now because you think my money can make your life easier. That is not family. That is convenience. Her face tightened with embarrassment. Richard spoke next, his voice trembling. Please reconsider. You are part of this family. I looked around the room one last time. The peeling paint, the creaking floors, the heavy air of silent judgment had hung in every corner since the day I arrived. No, I said. I never was. With that, I picked up my suitcase and walked toward the door. Michael followed me, his steps fast and uneven. Please, he said again, please don't leave like this. I can be better. I will be better. I opened the front door. A cool breeze moved through the air, lifting my hair and brushing against my skin like a soft welcome into a different life. Michael reached for my hand again, but I stepped away gently. You should learn to be better for yourself, I said. Not for me. I took a few steps outside, feeling the gravel under my shoes. The driveway stretched ahead, quiet and long. My car waited at the end like a promise. Behind me, Michael called my name over and over. His voice cracked. His footsteps hurried after me. But something inside me had already shifted. I did not feel guilt. I did not feel fear. I did not feel the need to look back and question my choice. I unlocked the car. I placed the suitcase inside. I sat in the driver's seat and closed the door. The sound echoed softly, like the final note of a long song. Michael reached the car and knocked on the window. Tears filled his eyes. Please, he whispered, give me one more chance. I looked at him through the glass. A man I loved. A man I lost. A man who had every chance and never used it. I took a slow breath, started the engine, and whispered words only he could read from my lips. It is too late. Then I drove away from the house on Crescent Hill. I did not look in the mirror. I did not check the road behind me. I kept my eyes forward, toward the open highway, toward my own home, my own life, my own future. For the first time in years, I felt light. I felt whole. I felt like myself again, the woman who had built her own world with her own hands. A woman who did not need anyone to validate her worth. A woman who had learned to let go when letting go meant survival. Ahead of me stretched a future I had created. A future no one could take away. And I drove toward it without a single thought of turning back.